Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Music and Moonsaults. I am your host, Chris Bordine. Today, we are going to be talking about Billy Joel, and specifically the album The Stranger. And to help me do that, someone who is not a stranger to this here show, from Fightful and Fightful Overbooked, he traded in his Chevy for a Cadillac. Mr. Joel Pearl is here. What's up, Joel?
That was an incredible intro. I appreciate it, Chris. It's good to be back. And you know what? I'm super stoked because we talk about metal a lot on this channel.
Yes.
You and I like talk about a lot of, we talked metal, we've talked a punk album. Now we're going to kind of change it up and do Billy Joel. And I don't think many people know that I am a pretty big Billy Joel fan. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. It's definitely, we all have our things where it's like kind of mine is Justin Timberlake. Like
And he's so good.
yes. But if you look at everything else I'm into, you're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. But
we all have our guilty pleasures.
yes. But no, this is so Billy. Obviously, like you grow up and you can't escape his music, and I've never like. It's like, yeah, he's got good songs, but it wasn't until actually we when we were like when the band was humming along, pre-pandemic, and we were looking for songs to add, and we added "You May Be Right," and they're like, "Who's gonna sing it?" And everyone kind of just looked at each other, and I'm like, "I guess I will."
Yes.
So and then so I was like really getting into that, and I think we did Shameless too.
That's a good tune, and it's not even like it's not his, but it is his.
Right. We kind of did a kind of mishmash of his and the Garth version, because obviously I'm a big Garth guy, and so I grew up with the Garth version, but we don't have steel guitars. So it was like, okay, we kind of got to blend them here. But what about you? How did you become such a Billy Joel fan?
So I grew up in a house that was pretty filled with music. My dad, when he was in university and even through high school, would write for the local school papers, and he would review albums, and he would go to concerts, and he was a big music guy. Didn't really play an instrument. He was always just kind of a music fan. So I ended up being the musician in the family. But my dad is huge, and a huge factor as to why I became interested in music at all. And to be honest, the first album of Billy's that ever really turned me on was the last one he did, which was River of Dreams in '94.
Okay.
And I was a kid. And I just remember listening to it on long car rides and just being like, it's good. I really liked it. And then I just remember going back and listening to it again and again. And later on in life, I got into like the greatest hits stuff. And then I started kind of, diving a little bit deeper. And I've always just stayed a fan.
Right. I remember River of Dreams, the song, getting played on the bus a lot when it first came out.
Yeah.
And I remember him. He was that's around the time that he was married to the supermodel, right? Her name escapes me.
Not Christy Brinkley.
Whatever.
That was I think that was the first marriage, and that one ended.
Okay.
And then I don't remember, because that album was '94.
I just remember him being on. We were a big Entertainment Tonight household, and I remember him being on Entertainment Tonight a lot.
Yeah.
So, but
if that was the time, maybe that was the time he was divorcing Christy, and then also it was the same time when his manager was proven to have like stolen a ton of money from him. He basically had to like rebuild his entire career out of his old work by going on tours and doing as much publicity and promo as he can. Like, he's still working today, but he's gotten so huge in the latter half of his career. And part of that, I think, now has been the MSG shows. He's doing these Madison Square Garden shows, which once upon a time, I actually tried to get my dad and my family tickets to that, because it was my dad's birthday. We were in New York City, and I think it was Billy's like 40th performance or his 30th. It was one of the landmark shows.
He's up to like 90 something now, I think.
Yeah. So it could have been one of the larger ones. So it was my dad's birthday, and it was my dad's 70th birthday. That I remember.
Okay.
And we all happened to be in the city. and I was like frantically trying to get tickets to surprise him. Couldn't do it because they're so expensive, so we didn't do it. But um, he does that, and then of course Billy still does ballparks. That's his gimmick now. Like whenever he goes out, he only goes to ballparks because he's such a huge baseball fan.
So funny you say that. He played Comerica Park in Detroit in July 9th. And I saw that. It was funny. There was like, quick aside, it was like they had like all 3 days that weekend they had a concert. I think Friday was Zach Brown Band, Saturday was Billy Joel, and Sunday was the stadium tour.
Oh wow,
the Def Leppard Motley Crue tour.
Yeah, that's big.
But anyways, so the day he was in town was my wife's birthday, and like I wanted to go, but I didn't know how much. I mean, I'm sure she would have gone, but I wasn't sure, so I didn't bring it. I planned something else, planned a surprise party instead. And then, like, before we get to the surprise party, she's like, one of my friends on Facebook is giving away her tickets to the Billy Joel concert tonight. And I'm like,
gimme.
I'm like, oh, that sucks. That'd be really cool.
Yes, it would. When I went to Phoenix for the Royal Rumble in 2019, they were promoting his show at Chase Field that was happening in 2020.
Yeah.
Like that's how far in advance that tour was. And then of course 2020 happened. He never played it. I think he went back into the show in 2021 or something like that. But yeah, it's just Billy Joel has moved from like hardcore working musician out there all the time, busting his ass, to still busting his ass, but like in a totally different way. And that's kind of why I've always respected him. And the band has changed over the years, but even when he was like in his younger days, he always took his band with him everywhere he went. And we're going to talk about that, or at least I'm going to bring it up because that's a huge pivotal moment in the picking of the producer for The Stranger. We'll get into that. So so we can dig into it. But it was
favorite stories.
Yeah, it's something that I always respect from Billy Joel, is that he always believed in taking his people with him.
Until he didn't.
Until he did. Well, Liberty and Doug were kind of dicks, but let's get into that later.
Yeah. Yeah, I also remember, to your point about how he just had to keep touring. There was at the Palace of Auburn Hills, they had, aside from all the Pistons banners in the in the rafters, they had for different touring acts that had reached a certain number of sellouts, they would get a banner. And I tried finding a picture of his, but I couldn't find it. But I know he had one. Kurt Rock obviously had one.
Who? Say it louder. I can't. No.
Yeah. I want to say the Rolling Stones had one. But yeah, it's just a select few, and he was one of them. I always remembered that. So
it's wild. The guy's been around forever, and he just continues to go. And he could turn it off at any time. He's done. He could just pack it in, but he's taking his time on his way out, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, let's talk about The Stranger then. As you mentioned, it's an anniversary here. It released on September 29th, 1977. So that's the 45th, if my math is correct.
I'm a musician. I don't know math.
Yeah, so. I think that sounds about right. 45th. We'll go with it. And it was released on Columbia Records, which, if this album didn't perform very well, it probably would have been his last album on Columbia Records. Yeah, he didn't have quite the success he was hoping for early on in his career.
No, he had a rough go to start everything off. He had the right ideas, but he didn't have the right people pushing him. And I think his sound wasn't exactly honed to the point that it is now. Even now, it still changes, But back then, if you go back and you listen to the ways that that his older songs were written and how they're played today, listen, the keys are different. That's whatever. That's aesthetic. That's a singing thing.
Yeah.
But even the way that they're performed, they're different. They're much more to the times. They're much more a little bit pop sensibility, and you can tell that when he was raw, it was good. It was different, but I don't think it was ready for it at the time, because in the 70s we were still dealing with disco and trying to get through that world. But now, as we approach 1977, he does one disco-esque song that to me doesn't sound so disco. The rest is all just that Billy Joel sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he told Rolling Stone in 2013, he said, quote, "You have to imagine them sitting there with a red pencil going, okay, that's it for this guy. He doesn't come through on this next album. He's gone." So he's got his band, like you mentioned. This is the second album that he uses his touring band on. Because before that he was bringing in session guys into the studio, and he wasn't quite what he was looking for. So he's like, all right, I'm just going to bring in my touring band in to record this. But if he would have given in, he could have had a much different producer than what he ended up with.
Yeah, this is a wild story. Yes. And the way that it closes out, the way it ends is like the perfect, circular moment. So go ahead. I mean, talk about it. I love it.
So he's in talks with George Martin. Ever heard of him?
We should smarten the people up to the fifth Beatle, maybe.
Yeah. In case you're not aware, George Martin is the guy who produced all except for one of the Beatles records. Like, he was the guy. And he's the one that, helped them create, when they were breaking all kinds of ground, in the latter part of their career when it comes to recording music. He was that guy right there with them, like helping them come up with all this crazy stuff, loops and all kinds of stuff. He's that guy.
So Columbia's like, hey, you should probably work with George Martin.
Yeah.
And then George Martin goes up to Billy Joel and says, who you got in mind for a band? And Billy Joel's like, oh, I'm going to take my road band with me. And Martin's like, no, that's not how we're going to do it. And he pitches, he wants to do his own band. And Billy Joel's like, no, I've made my choice.
Yeah.
So Billy Joel turned down George Martin.
Yes.
Not the other way around. It wasn't George Martin said, I can't do this. It was Billy Joel said, I'm taking a chance on my guys that I believe in and I know.
Mm-hmm.
And George Martin, I'm sorry, but not this time around.
Yeah.
And then he ends up going with Phil Ramone, and we can get into the importance of that. Go ahead, right?
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Yeah. So he ends up with, like you said, he ends up with Phil Ramone, and they go on. He basically was like, if I'm, look, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down with my guys, So, and it's not like Phil Ramone was any a slouch by any means either.
Yeah, that's right.
He had some. Apparently, I didn't put it in my notes who he had worked with before. That was bad of me. But yes, he was a guy. We'll put it that way. Let me just research on air here.
Ray Charles, Frank Sinatra, Paul Simon, Barbra Streisand. There you go. We'll throw up some names. I got you.
Thank you, Joel.
It happens.
Yeah. So, well,
we've all been caught with our pants down, haven't we?
Yes. Figuratively, yes.
Figuratively. That's right.
Well, we've talked. We've kind of hinted at this band. Let's talk about them. The three guys at this point, because I don't think Russell was in the band yet, at least from what I could tell. But we got Liberty DeVito on drums, Doug Stegmeyer on bass, and Richie Kanata on the sax and the organ. And there's a really great documentary. I don't know if you've seen it, Joel, or any of you out there. If you haven't, you need to check it out, called Hired Gun. And it's about musicians.
I saw it a long time ago.
Yeah, I rewatched it before we were initially going to record this podcast, like a month ago.
Yes, we had a calamity of issues come up over the times.
It's been been a long, hard road to get here, but we're here. Yes. But yeah, because I watched it a few years ago too, and I'm like, because Liberty especially is on there a lot, and it's it's just a really good documentary. It's him. Who else is in it? Rudy Sarzo's in it. I'm drawing blanks now. Phil X is in it. Eric Singer is in it. Yeah, just a bunch of really cool musicians are in it. So I definitely check that out if you haven't seen that before.
Fun nerdy fact, Rudy Sarzo almost convinced me to go with a specific brand of in-ear monitors when I was in the markets.
Really?
And I did not take his advice.
Oh, all right.
I went with the tried and true Shure. He was pitching me on Galaxy Audio.
Okay.
That's what he was pitching me on, because that's who he uses or still uses.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't go with that. But at the time, that's my Rudy Sarzo story. Nice guy, just couldn't sell me. I'm sorry, Rudy.
Yeah, But okay, so we're finally here. The Stranger comes out. It's a little doesn't have quite the initial success, but eventually it spends 6 weeks at number 2 on the Billboard 200. And it only was kept out of the number 1 spot by the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack.
That damn disco again.
Yeah.
Telling you, man.
It has 4 singles that all were top 40 hits. It's his best-selling album to date. And the best-selling Columbia Records album. So, it's sold more than 10 million copies to date and is on the Rolling Stone 500 Greatest Albums of All Time if you are into that sort of thing. Why, besides the fact that you're a fan and it was on the list, why else did you want to cover this album, Joel?
This album has so many songs that Billy has talked about in interviews and just in like appearances. And these songs were ones that I learned and loved growing up. And like, I'm looking at the song list and like, out of 9 tracks in front of me, 7 are ones that I listen to frequently, ones that I will put on and not even think about. And after today, I'll add another one because I never really loved Get It Right the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And then today I listened to it again for the first time, or not the first time, but for first time in a long time. And I was like, okay, I kind of like this one.
Yeah.
So I've come back on a couple of tunes, but these are songs that have been in his repertoire for so long and so well known, and some of them have incredible stories attached to them that when I was presented by you to talk about any Billy Joel album that's hitting an anniversary mark, this made the most sense to me.
Yeah, they are at least, like you said, 7 of them are they're not just like they're in the ether, like they're just all inescapable, especially like the 4 or 5 of them that were real big hits. But even going the next few before that or after that are like you whether you know it or not, you've heard these songs 100 times.
Absolutely. It's wild. It's just wild to think about it.
Yes. And it's like it's one of the greatest side ones of any album.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Because we kick it off with Moving Out, Anthony's song. This was another one that if had the pandemic not shut us down, I was pushing for us to learn that song next.
Mm-hmm.
Because
how are you gonna do the motorcycle part?
Well, so way into the weeds. So the last time we were at Gear Fest, my brother, who's our drummer, bought a trigger machine.
Yes. Oh, I was waiting for that. Okay. Good. Yes.
Because we were gonna load the glass break for You May Be Right. Mm-hmm. There's a couple other things we were gonna do. So there you go. But we never even got around to loading it with anything.
I'm glad I asked though.
Yes. Yes. This is a really great song. It's peaked at number 17 on the Hot 100. And it's just about, people that are always trying to, live beyond their means. so to speak.
And a bit of it's also like that New York kind of toxic masculinity as well. Like talking about, should I leave the city and go live in Hackensack, New Jersey? Like, should I leave the big town and will I be just as important? Or like Sergeant O'Leary is like big tough guy, but he's working 2 jobs and all he wants to do is own a damn Cadillac.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, that is like, it's such a interesting song progression, like the way the lyrics pan out.
I've always loved trading in the Chevy for a Cadillac, but the next line is even better. And I hit it, listening to this over and over in and if you can't drive with a broken back, at least you can polish the fenders. Like,
yes. And it's such an amazing image.
Yeah.
You're thinking of a guy just with a broken back,
both
just
literal and figurative too.
Exactly.
Like, a lot, I do it all. Not all the time, but it's happening more and more as life gets busy. You work and you buy these fun things, and then you don't have either the time or the ability to use them.
Yeah, and it's a big deal, and you got to deal with them long term, or you sell them off. But again, that masculinity just says, I can't get rid of them because I bought this. This is my property. I own it. Did you know that this song was originally written as like a soft ballad?
Oh, I can't even imagine.
So Joel tells a story on VH1 Storytellers where he's like, they got the song. He's like, I had the idea in my head, and then we got into the studio, and he's like, I started playing it and I started singing it and everything. And then he turns to Liberty DeVito, and Liberty's like, you schmuck, that's Neil Sedaka. And then he found out that it's the same tune to Laughter in the Rain. And so he changed it until we got into the song that you hear today.
Yeah.
But I just the whole story of like, you schmuck.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
There's another story just like that later on this album. So that's kind of funny. It's got a good, the good melody, good, like under like sneaky guitar riff that drives the song. Just a real good groove. I love that song. It's up there in my top 5 Billy Joel songs for sure.
Yeah, you can always go back and hear it and listen to it.
Yes. The second song, the title track, The Stranger, this one I heard a bunch of times in my 9 years working at Kmart. This was a Kmart radio favorite.
I can believe that. I really can.
So yeah, I heard this one, and for the longest time I didn't even know who it was. Pun not intended. I was like, oh, that's a good song. And then I can't remember when I figured out that it was The Stranger by Billy Joel. I'm like, oh, all right. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, I can hear that now. Okay. But I love, it starts out, it's got this whistling and piano intro, and then it completely flips into I don't even know what kind of style you would call this song.
It's kind of bossa nova rock.
Yeah.
And like, first of all, Liberty and Doug are probably one of my favorite rhythm section duos in all of music. And this particular song, The Stranger, like, Liberty has a lead foot, right? And it's in my eardrum for this particular song. And Doug is just getting funky right there with it. It's so straightforward and so simple, but it's so good.
That's the word I would funky. That's what I was looking for. It's a very funky song.
Do you know the story about the whistle on the track?
Yes. It was he originally wanted it to be wanted to change it into some sort of wood instrument. Like, he didn't want it to be the whistle, but Phil was like, no, just leave the whistle in. It sounds better.
And it did.
Yeah. So it's so good that there's a callback twice on this, like at the end of the song, and then at the very end of the album it's called back to.
You're right.
And the song's been sampled a few times, once by Snoop Dogg and once by Exhibit, among many others.
Really getting that money.
There you go.
Well, I guess his manager got the money. But it's not important.
Yeah. Then I think Just the Way You Are is next, and I believe that this is the song. This is the biggest song on the album. Yes, because it won 2 Grammys. Peaked at number 3 and won 2 Grammys for Record and Song of the Year. He wrote it about his first wife, Elizabeth. And so actually they divorced in the 82, and he basically stopped performing the song until the 90s. Like you were talking about. I'm guessing when it's like, oh crap, I got to go out and play the hits to make back all this money.
He kind of figured out after that he could go back and play it again.
And then he would said that after the divorce, when they would play it live, Liberty would jokingly prod him by changing the lyrics to she got the house,
she got the car.
Which is pretty funny, but I could get on the other end if you'd be like, yeah, you son of a bitch.
It's not the first time that someone changed the lyrics to that song for an appearance. You know that?
No.
So Billy does Sesame Street, and he sings the song with Oscar the Grouch.
Mm-hmm.
And he sings, "Don't go changing just to please me, because being friendly is not your style.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want to hear you saying thank you. I would hate to see you smile. Just be grouchy, really grouchy. You've done it pretty well so far. I like you just the way you are."
That's funny. That's good.
And then that's not the first time.
That one.
And it's also not the first time that someone sang a Billy Joel song in a Muppet style show, because Leslie Ann Warren sang the song in 1979 when she appeared on the Muppet Show. So for some reason, the Muppets and Sesame Street just love this song.
So my dad had one of those cheap Casio keyboards. I'm sure you know the ones that they
absolutely.
Yes, you could either, they came with a electric adapter, but you could pop a few D batteries in it and use it that way if you so choose. Mm-hmm. And it had a demo button where it would go through and play all the sounds, all 99 sounds or whatever. And the song, the melody that they played all these in was Just the Way You Are. The do 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 do, just all play the whole song all the way through. You know, each bar was a different sound effect.
Did you? Okay, so we're both cover band musicians. We have been, or were at one point in our lives. Billy secretly hates it when we play his songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Billy told a story. Billy tells a story where he goes into a piano bar at a hotel. Like he's on tour and he comes in and there's a guy playing at the piano there in this piano bar. And all of a sudden the guy just kind of moves his way from whatever tune he's playing, and he starts playing Just the Way You Are. And the guy screws it up. But he doesn't screw it up by playing the wrong notes. He just plays the feel wrong. Well, and so Billy he didn't stop him during the set and explain to the guy where he messed it up. Well, he explained the whole story, how he's just midway through this whole, playing Just the Way You Are. He's like, I don't need this guy playing my song wrong.
Yeah.
So if you're going to play Billy Joel, you got to play it right, especially if you're going to do it in front of him.
That's completely understandable.
Of course. Yeah. It's a feel thing too. So he's very picky about that stuff.
Oh yeah. Originally he didn't even want to include the song on the album though, because he thought it was too sappy.
It's pretty sappy.
And he didn't think it fit with the rest of the album. But Phil Ramone brought in Linda Ronstadt into the studio to listen to it, and she's like, I love this song. And she's like, when Billy told her that he wasn't going to put it on the album, she's like, are you crazy? That's a great song. So he's like, well, if Linda Ronstadt thinks it's a great song, I guess I better put it on the album.
She was right.
Yep. So and then we end side one with an epic, dare I say, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. They in 2021, Rolling Stone updated their 500 greatest songs of all time list, and this clocked in at number 324. I gotta see the rest of the list, but I usually disagree strongly with most Rolling Stone lists. So,
the number one was probably like "Wake Me Up When September Ends" by Green Day.
No, it probably was Bob Dylan something.
Oh yes, "Blowing in the Wind."
Yeah, something. But yeah, this is essentially 3 songs woven together. Which, when you think about it, that would have been really interesting if George Martin would have produced this album, because this is very a day in the life ish.
Yeah, in certain ways.
In certain ways, where it's like 3 separate parts kind of just stuck together.
Yeah, but also everything kind of works together in tandem and calls back.
Yeah, I mean, it is different. Whereas it tells one story essentially, as opposed, whereas A Day in Life is 2 completely different things put together. But I just,
Well, so Ballad of Brenda and Eddie was the original song.
Yeah.
And Billy goes in and he just starts like, it's just this ragtime song. And he's like, well, I can't just be this.
Yeah.
Because like there's no setup, nothing makes sense. And do you know the story of how they got to the whole the setup for the song?
The bottle of red, bottle of white, whatever kind of mood you're in tonight. That was actually spoken to him by a waiter at the I'm gonna butcher this, Fontana di Trevi, which is basically the Italian restaurant that inspired this song. And so this waiter said those words to Billy Joel while he was ordering, and he's like, "That's how I'm gonna start this song."
And what's even better is that he goes an extra layer, because the song starts bottle of white, bottle of red.
Yeah.
Because if you're at an Italian restaurant, typically you're eating seafood or chicken.
Right.
And when you're served seafood or chicken, what are you offered first?
White.
Bottle of white.
Yeah.
So there's some extra thought going into a song that opens up about meeting at an Italian restaurant and being offered wine by your waiter. I think it's incredible. But yeah, the song itself is just iconic. I mean, there's no other word for it.
Iconic, beautiful. It's all of the above.
Yeah, and it all fits togetger perfectly, especially for that style.
As the kids say, it's a banger.
I wouldn't go that far in this case, but yes.
I mean, in the, yeah, anyways. We kick off side 2 with Vienna, which wasn't a single, but yet it's his 4th most played song on Spotify.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
I was looking at that and I was just very confused.
But it's just one of those songs that, for whatever reason, the diehards, like, this is a live staple because the diehards just love it.
Do you love it?
It's good.
That's not my favorite tune.
It's out of all the songs, it's probably my least favorite. But it's not bad. It's okay.
Yeah, it's a ballady tune, right? And like it just always ending with that Vienna waits for you. And if you know what it feels like, and it's perfect placement in the album, it feels like the solo tune to open up the second half of a Broadway musical. That's how I hear it.
I find if I can get past the opening few notes, that slow, like single note piano descending figure, once I get into the actual song, I'm into it.
Yeah.
But when I hear those first few notes, my first instinct is to hit skip, because instinctually I'm like, this whole song is going to be this slow and plotting, like I don't got time for this. But once it actually gets into the song itself, I'm like, oh no, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So, but it's another one of those, don't wish your life away type things. He says, you don't have to squeeze your whole life into your 20s and 30s trying to make it, trying to achieve that American dream. getting in the rat race and killing yourself. You have a whole life to live. So
I mean, the story is really about his family who left Vienna, Austria.
Yeah.
Like that is really the crux of the story being told there, or at least the basis upon which he wrote the lyrics. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I get it. Again, like it evokes emotion. It clearly comes from a legitimate place for Billy, but for me, it never resonated the same way.
Yeah. But in a 2008 New York Times article, he said it's one of his 2 favorite songs. So
good for him.
Good for
the
him.
Other one, hopefully, is not Piano Man. It's probably like Laura or something. I like Laura. It's actually a really good song.
Then we come to one that's moving up the list for me. Only the Good Die Young.
It's probably one of my favorite songs.
Yeah. It's definitely climbing up the list. Just a fun little shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
And you brought up about the moving out, how Liberty was like, hey, that's already a song. Well, this one, apparently this song was originally a reggae style tune.
Yes.
And in the Hired Gun documentary, Liberty so eloquently says, closest thing you've come to Jamaica is in Queens.
Yeah, they tried, but luckily it changed into a very walkable, groovy bass line kind of, shuffle groove. And it worked. And, whenever I hear the song, I think about a Disney movie, but for some reason, like the song was never used in a Disney movie, but I always just think about it. No, I know. I just think about it. It's like, it's a Disney movie, but it's not, because clearly the language is, let's get into that.
And, I've heard the song for years, and I guess I never really listened to the words until doing the research for this. And like, they're like, it was, anti-Catholic, the Catholics were all up in arms about the song. I'm like, really? Like, what? Why? And then I'm like, oh, all right. Well, that explains it. Yeah. It's basically about him trying to get a Catholic girl to give it up. And
he's all about like, it's all about like sexuality and religious guilt when you're a teenager and like you're in those visceral years. So like, again, good storytelling. It's like, it's the badass kid, the greaser kid trying to get that Catholic schoolgirl to notice him and sleep with him. And she's like, no, I gotta wait. And he wrote the song while he was on tour with the Beach Boys, which I always find hilarious.
Yeah. And it's like, there's an actual Virginia that he had a crush on in high school. But as he notes in a 2008 interview with Oprah, that like the people that were protesting, they didn't listen to the whole song because he's unsuccessful in his attempts. She shuts him down at the end. He doesn't get anywhere. So score 1 for Catholicism, I guess.
That's unfortunate. But anyway, but it's not the first time that Billy faces some sort of weird, like turned around criticism, because Just the Way You Are, it happens again. A bunch of people hear the lyrics, don't go changing. Just, what's the lyric? It's don't go changing.
Try and please me.
Yeah. And Billy's like, no, I think you're completely misinterpreting it. It's don't change.
Yeah.
It's not don't change.
Yeah.
It's don't change for me.
Yeah.
I love you just the way you are. I don't want you to change yourself for me because you are exactly the person I want you to be. But people misinterpreted that and started twisting the words to mean like, oh, he hates women and he wants them to change for him. But it's like very clearly not the case.
The opposite. Yeah.
Yeah. There's just a lot of bad faith arguments, which unfortunately we see a lot these days.
What? No.
Anyway,
everyone in Twitter has the most faith in their arguments.
Yeah, they all won citizenship awards in high school.
Well, and then we come to another ballad written about his first wife. She's always
Billy
a woman.
The Kid?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
She's always a woman. So yeah, another ballad, nice little ballad here about his wife. And it was basically him describing how at the time she was his manager, and like how she could be so like, you know, iron-fisted when it came to business, but like she's still a woman to me. Like he still sees the soft side of her.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song.
Mm-hmm.
It's never meant the same to me that it would have to him.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite performance, and people still talk about it to this day, when Billy did Last Play at Shea Stadium in 2011. They do the song, and the camera catches during the interlude a guy get engaged to his partner.
Oh, nice.
And people are celebrating in the stands, and then Billy yells through the microphone, "Get a prenup!" And of course, everyone laughs, including the bride and groom to be.
Yeah.
And people out like for years have just been like, "Was this staged? Was it not?" Doesn't matter. But like, I'll always remember that moment, and then Billy yelling, "Get a prenup!" Because of course, this song is about the woman who would be his ex-wife.
Yeah.
So a good song, a very tender song, and again, great lyrical subtext.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it never did it for me. It was just always a good song, and that's it.
Yeah. Same here. He said that it's a aside from, literally being about his wife, it's also a commentary on women in business being persecuted and insulted.
Mm-hmm. So, and he's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's probably it and Vienna are like he said, when you're talking about those 7 songs that are in the greater consciousness, those are probably the 2 on the bottom for me. But yeah, it's a good song. And the last 2 songs on the album are probably the 2 least known, including the one you were talking about earlier, "Get It Right the First Time." Inspired by the challenge of making a good impression with a girl, highlighting the importance of not flubbing such an encounter and getting it right the first time.
Which they did not do in the studio.
Tell me
There's
about
a
that.
Story that Liberty DeVito tells Greg Prato from Song Facts. And he says that like...
Oh, I love Greg Prato.
Yeah, it's great. He's a wonderful interviewer, wonderful guy. And so they get to the very end of the recording. Ah, there you go. Gets to the very end of the recording of that album, and they were like, we didn't get it right the first time, because they just kept screwing it up, and then eventually they do it at the end, and they're like, we didn't get it right the first time. So yeah, there it is. But it's such a good, it's a good song.
Yeah,
it's such an excellent lounge band tune. Mm-hmm. And it has jazz chords all over the place. Like it's challenging enough, but it's not too challenging. It's highly singable. There's the La 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 interlude that people can remember mm-hmm. and sing along with. And yeah, it was the hardest song to get right. It was how Liberty had put it.
Yes.
So but it's such a good song. It feels easy, but it's clearly not.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we close it out with "Everybody Has a Dream," a gospel song of all things. You'd think this would have kept the Catholics at bay.
Well, when you try to make like a Joe Cocker gospel song.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, this one's all right.
It's funny because Billy Joel's style mm-hmm. is very much a celebration of every other style of music.
Yes.
And this song is no different. This is a celebration of gospel. Mm-hmm. But he takes a gospel tune or a gospel style and makes it into a Billy Joel song, which he did the song before that with "Get It Right the First Time."
Yeah.
Does it with "Vienna," right? I just said it's like a Broadway tune for the solo artist. All of these songs that are so Billy Joel, the songwriter, put to music, mm-hmm. but in a different style that they celebrate. And this is one of those songs. Billy was like, told USA Today, he's like, I wanted a gospel Joe Cocker thing. Mm-hmm. And that's what he was after, and that's what he got. And it's a beautiful song. It just never, again, it's another song like, it's great, it's there, I just don't go out of my way to listen to it.
Yeah, exactly. And then, and as I said, the song ends, and then we get a callback to the callback. And this is a quite they go through the alternating between the whistling and the piano a few different times on the way out, before it finally fades out to end the album.
Yeah, it was kind of like the not the prelude, but it's on the interlude. I guess it's a postlude. I don't know what the word would be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's I don't know if it's like we need to use up some more time on this tape or what the deal was, but I like it. I like a good callback to a callback.
So the story comes full circle with George Martin and Billy Joel.
All right, give it to me.
They go to a concert. George Martin goes to see Billy Joel perform at Carnegie Hall, and he's got Billy's band. Billy's band is playing in Billy's show. Mm-hmm. George Martin goes up to Billy Joel at the end of the night and says, "You were right to turn me down. You picked the right people to do this gig, and I would not have done nearly as good of a job as Phil Ramone did."
Well, there you go.
Just a sign of respect.
Yeah.
Everyone was right in this situation.
Everyone came out okay.
Yeah, everyone came out just fine. And I just love that, you go full circle with this whole Billy turns down George Martin, goes with Phil Ramone, who becomes his mentor and his producer for most of the 70s through the 80s. Mm-hmm. And George Martin does just fine. And even he shows up at a gig and says, I get it. You were right.
Yeah.
And it takes a big person to do that. So I love that the story kind of comes full circle with the stranger here.
Awesome. Yes. Any other anecdotes or stories you have to share?
I don't. We're all gonna go and we're gonna go eat some Italian food. Let's do that.
Let's do that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll meet you anytime you want here in our Italian restaurant via Zoom call.
Will you be Brenda or Eddie?
I'll let you choose.
Okay, I'll be Brenda.
Okay. Joel, where can people find you?
I'm not hard to find. I'm at Joel Pearl, JoelPearl. Chris, you're the man. I appreciate you. I love doing these shows with you.
I appreciate you, man.
They're fun.
Yes. I just love talking music with you. So
me too. With you.
It's great. Go follow Joel. Go to Fightful. Go to Fightful Overbooked. Hire Joel, damn it.
Hire me. Get me on your shows of whatever kinds. Go find it on YouTube. My personal channel has my thing there. What's it called? Demo reel.
Yeah.
My reels.
Yeah. Sizzle reel.
That's what it is, I guess. A hosting reel? I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Just a guy who talks into a microphone with a camera in front of him.
Yeah. Aren't we all?
Seriously.
You can follow me at Ibanez Chris on Twitter. musicandmoonsalts.com is your direct link to this very channel. You can also find me on all your favorite podcast platforms if you are so inclined to listen to the audio version of this here show. Yeah, that'll do it then. Until next time, everyone. See ya.